Oh, hey, I'm back again. My name's John Wright, and you're not, but I wish he was. But then again, I wish he wasn't put in the position that I've been put in. My dad was the hijacker. My dad's D.B. Cooper. My dad was actually George L. Wright, but D.B. Cooper, what's D.B. Cooper stand for? Well, it was Dan. Dan Cooper. Where did my dad get the Dan? Well, my dad got the Dan from possibly an actor he knew when he was a child. Is possibly from Danny Johnson right there in Port Angeles, Washington. And I'll tell you another thing about Port Angeles, Washington. Let's go back to the Hagwoods explosion in Port Angeles, Washington. Now, right there, there's an episode right there where Danny Johnson got some money for an explosion that happened outside of the front of that building. What they did was they put a package in front of that building and blew it all up. And matter of fact, there was a Vietnam person that was staying upstairs that was back from Vietnam at that very time. It was a very orchestrated thing. They blew up Aggies in Port Angeles, Washington. Danny Johnson got some money out of it over blowing that up. Matter of fact, Danny Johnson was right there, the Highway Market at the end of Gale's Addition. Gale's Addition, there was a Highway Market store right there. Yeah. Now, my dad's gas station was right behind it. It was an Exxon, an Inco gas station. They changed it to Exxon. Isn't that something? Exxon Valdez ran aground up in Alaska. Isn't that an actual nice situation? My dad wasn't scared of the gas chamber in California. It's being the Zodiac, remember? If you know anything about the Zodiac, he was talking about he's not scared of the gas chamber. The gas chamber, there was one right there at the store. And by the way, now let's go. Now, the first couple, Betty Lou and the boy, was a Boy Scout. Oh, yeah, he was hooked to Boy Scouts, and right there, he got snuffed out, and Betty Lou's got snuffed out too. What's happening here with these here people? Well, Betty Lou has an L in the middle of her name. A matter of fact, now we go to Darlene. Does Darlene have an L in her name? I'm not sure. I once seen a thing that said it was L, but I'm not sure. But I know that I was there the night that Darlene got murdered and Michael Mougeot got shot up because I was at my dad's brand new pickup and camper that he drove from Port Angeles, Washington, and he was down there at that paper mill. The paper mill in Port Angeles, Washington, where I worked, fiberboard. And then he worked for the fiberboard mill in Antioch, California. And while he was in Antioch, California, he did the Zodiac killings throughout the little California area. And then he came back to Washington. And he came back to Washington on January 3rd. He showed up. My sister had a baby in the hospital right here that they would like to have pulled off, that it was Marietta's child, but it was this woman's child right here. And they abducted that child, and they put pressure on my sister to comply, become part of it. They're living by signs. My sister works at Cooper's Point Safeway. It's the Safeway. Cooper Point. Here we are at Alpine Drive. Here I got Alpine Bowl right here. Airplane Bowl. Airplanes in the name. The bowling alley's right there in Morton, Washington, and they've painted it gray and put a saw on the front of it. And you know what? I came forward with all this information, and the neighbor over here, he's been acting out. Matter of fact, neighbor's been acting out against me because the cops have been, this is the cops' hangout right here. And I don't know what kind of activities my neighbors do, but I'll tell you what, this guy over here, he's been turning on goddamn power equipment up and just making terrible noise in the area. I finally had to print out the legal things to noise conditions being unsuitable for people, what the law is of Washington State, and I put it in the guy's mailbox. And within a couple hours, he had a great big explosion over there at his house, and then there was another explosion just off to the left of me over there. And now this weekend, it's been quiet. The guy shut up, he quit doing his machinery, he quit making a scene over there. And it was definitely a problem. And I took care of it directly by putting the law right into his mailbox, which is a black mailbox with a lock on it, because he don't trust nobody anyway. I don't know what he does for his activities over there, but the law enforcement is over there, right there at that abandoned fire hall, that they really shouldn't have no right to sit there and harass from, because they do harass from that very place. And matter of fact, now let's get back to this whole situation. Then, you know, my dad had this bowling alley in Morton, Washington, next to the cemetery, next to Brown's mortuary, next to the cemetery and all that stuff. And I'm telling you the truth. And I got a lot of people that's over there that's dead that I know. Anytime they talk to me, man, they got snuffed out. It's like people were watching them. Maybe, you know, something that killed them. You know? And it goes on and on. I can prove it. And by the way, then, since I went over there and I gave that guy that, this guy over here, he picks up the phone and he calls the people that owns this property next door, and they're over here this week. They want to cut down the property. He's right there behind my house. This gentleman, and you know what his name is? Brown, like Brown's mortuary up there in Morton, Washington, and Brown's mortuary right here. Is this here supposed to be a cemetery, by the way, that's right here on Alpine Drive and stuff? Is this a big plot? Is this where they're going to bury people through this area? Is right here on my brother-in-law's and sister's place. Is my sister being forced to be here? Because I feel that she is being forced to be here. And by the way, my attorney, James L. Rowland, started threatening me and extorting me. And my brother Jerry and my attorney, James L. Rowland, was involved. And James L. Rowland sat in their office just smiling and stuff like there's nothing you could goddamn do about it because it's an inside job. And what he did was they pensioned me out, and then they put a hit on me. Matter of fact, they put a hit on Rhonda Reynolds that came to my house, the state patrol. The state patrol came to my house over road rage from James Rowland's office. I'm telling you the truth. James Rowland works for the Department of L&I, and he told me he wrote the book. And he tried to extort me for 110 times more than the law will allow. Well, I wouldn't pay him. And when he started threatening me about my brother Jim, when he heard about my brother Jim, and then he started telling me where he got his start. And then he told me that he walked his partner up the trail, and his partner's Jerry Moore, a prominent attorney and judge of Lewis County, Washington, that gets walked up the trail and snuffed out. And that's what set me on this whole thing, and it's cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here's my brother Jerry passing himself off as somebody else, and they framed this guy named Rick Rife for the murder of the Merwins, which my brother Jerry did, and he probably forced my brother Jim to comply, just like in the past. And my brother Jim is an innocent man because he's forced, and my brother Jerry is a dirty goddamn dog. Now let's get this right. Hey, I'm going to be sending A, B, and C, this is number 3, out to all the judges and stuff throughout the United States of America tonight. And I tell you what, often imitated, never duplicated. Hey man, I could be the goddamn judge, I could be the jury, and I could goddamn convict all these goddamn clowns. Isn't that fun? Hey, why don't you get a hold of me? Let's have some fun with these clowns. The Republican Party's dirty. My dad told me it's big red.